but I want to introduce you guys to Dimitra Williams. She's a graduate of FIT with a Bachelor of Fine Arts in Fashion Design. At FIT, she specialized in knitwear and has continued to work in knits throughout her career. With experience at Opening Ceremony, Kim Holler, and Brooks Brothers, Dimitra is currently spending her days at Helmut Lang as an associate designer. In March 2020, Dimitra founded Miitra. She created Miitra as a way to utilize the themes, individuals, and experiences that fed her personal creativity and artistry. Miitra is her way of amplifying the positive representation of the Black community in the luxury design space. To quote Miitra's brand guide, at Miitra, our purpose is simple: to empower your spirit through thoughtfully designed pieces and to promote strength, confidence, and self-love with every product we offer. We create investment pieces at an attainable price point with timeless appeal because everyone deserves to wear their values with pride. Our aesthetic is clean, modern, and minimal, so our statement messages of positivity and hope always remain the focus. Please join me in welcoming Dimitra. Hi.
Hi. Can you see me and hear me?
Yes, we can.
Awesome.
Welcome back to FIT. Even though we're not in the physical space, we'll pretend we are.
Yeah, I know. I actually miss it. Every time I pass by the school, I'm like, oh, that used to be my home. So yeah, it's nice. Thank you for having me.
Yes, so we're so happy to have us here. So on that note, tell us about your time at FIT, what you did while you were on campus.
Yeah, of course. So I honestly can't believe it. It's been 10 years since I've graduated now. So I imagine FIT is like a different place now. But while I was there, I started in 2007, graduated in 2011. New York was a very different place than it is now. Obviously, with what's going on, everything is so different now. But I had an amazing time at FIT. I had so much fun. It was a lot of work and a lot of long nights, but honestly, I look back on the entire experience now and I don't know, I look at it as such a precious time in my life. I had amazing friends while I was there, a lot of camaraderie, and I learned a lot. And like I said, I had a good time. So, I think just being at FIT, it really did hone in the essential skills that you need to be a designer, but then once you're like thrown into the industry, you just learn so much more as you go. But I really do value everything that I learned while there. So it does set you up for a pretty realistic idea of what it's like working in the industry. So
yeah,
it was great.
Any favorite classes come to mind or activities?
In terms of classes, again, I'm a knitwear designer, so once I went into the bachelor's program and started the knitwear classes, those really became my favorites. I loved working on the stole machines. Of course, I don't remember the name of the class, but all the classes where we got to work with the machinery were some of my favorites.
Yeah, I could see that. That's fun. Mm-hmm. And one thing that you mentioned just now was the friendships that you made while you were at FIT. Have you continued those friendships in the real world and crossed paths with anyone at all?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I still talk to a handful of the people I knew there, and actually my core group of friends there, we're still all friends, and we all have businesses now. So
cool.
That's really been really, really cool to see how everyone has grown, how their careers have really grown, and also just to see that we're all dipping our foot into entrepreneurship now. So we kind of just like support each other in that way. So it's like we're all growing together, and it's really cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So how did you get your first job out of school?
So it was a little challenging, actually. Again, I graduated in 2011, and at that time we were sort of pulling out of, our economic recession, so things hadn't completely improved yet. It was still a really challenging time in terms of finding jobs, and it's pretty similar to what I think a lot of people are experiencing now with the pandemic. So when I graduated, I couldn't really find the job that I wanted. So I had the luxury of sort of waiting it out a little bit. So that's what I chose. I worked retail for a little bit, and then I decided that, okay, let me pad my resume and try to get a little bit more experience. So I decided to intern in London. So I went overseas and I spent a couple of months there, and I interned at this brand called Craig Lawrence, and he was pretty similar to like a Mark Fast, which I don't know if you guys know who Mark Fast is anymore at this point, but he was a pretty innovative knitwear designer at the time over in London, and Craig Lawrence was doing really similar things to him. So I went over there and I got that experience, and when I came back, I saw this posting on, I believe it was Style Careers, which I still think is a legitimate site for looking for jobs and when you're at that stage. And it was from this woman named Kim Haller. I'd never heard of her, but she is currently still a knitwear consultant. And she basically just did all the sweaters for all of these major brands in New York. And I was like, oh, this is so cool. It's like, I would love to get that experience. So I just applied. I didn't hear back from her for a while, so I kind of just kept like applying pressure, and that's a tip that I have for anyone listening out who wants a job. Sometimes you just gotta like keep on people's radar and just kind of like keep reminding them that you're there. And basically I got the interview with her, she liked me, and I got hired. And actually she told me, she's like, you know what? You kept popping up in my inbox. And I was like, oh yeah, I remember her. Let me just now that I have the time to interview her, let me just go ahead and do that. And that's how I got the job.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, persistence is key. That's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
One thing that I've been fortunate enough to focus on this year, since we're remote, we have had a lot of people from different places around the world. Usually I'm so limited to who's actually physically in New York all the time. But tell us a little bit about your experience working in London versus New York, and kind of the personalities of the two different cities.
Yeah. So I think the biggest difference between London and New York is that there's probably more opportunities here in New York than there are in London. I think the industry is actually a little bit tougher out there in Europe. I think it's a lot more competitive. And, in terms of creativity, I think they're leading the pathway there. I would love to see New York push it more in terms of innovation and creativity, especially when it comes to knitwear. I think they really have that over there. But at the same time, I just feel like, there's more corporate, bigger companies here. I think there's more jobs available. So like if you have these like big dreams about going to Europe and getting a job, it's a little bit harder. You kind of have to like validate that you're worth the visa, which is tough. But yeah, I mean, in terms of like the industry in itself and the people, everyone's really cool. Everyone's pretty artistic, really creative, which I loved. But New York is my home, and so coming back and working here has been really fulfilling for me.
That's great. Well, yeah. New York welcomes you back. So when did you decide your own company?
Yeah, so I think for me, it's always sort of been in the back of my mind that it's something I wanted to do. But in the past few years, it was starting to like come up again a little bit more, and the idea became really prominent in my mind when I was at my last job. And I was feeling a little unfulfilled and a little like lost my passion a little bit for fashion. But yeah, I mean, I was kind of at a place where I wasn't exactly happy with what I was doing. I wasn't happy with the product I was creating. I kind of was on autopilot a little bit in terms of design. And for me, starting Miitra was my way of just kind of reigniting my passion for what I do. I love design. I love being creative. For me, if you have a job in fashion and you're just sitting at a desk and you're on your computer all day, that's not really what we sign up for. So when I started Miitra, it was really about just getting back to like hardcore design and being able to make things that I love again, and also just being able to work with the inspirations and passions that I really felt strongly about, when you work for someone, you don't really get to make those decisions. You obviously contribute to the larger picture, but you don't get to set the tone. That's your director's job. So in starting Miitra, that was my way of just being able to dictate what I get to design. No one else gets to tell me. I'm in full control. And
Awesome.
that's a really beautiful place to be in design. So
Yeah, definitely.
mm-hmm.
No, it was me who cut out.
Hi.
Sorry, I wasn't sure if it was you or me.
I don't
Did
know.
you hear my
I
question?
didn't hear anything you said. So
I said, how have you been? How has it been going balancing your company versus Helmut Lang?
yeah, Helmut Lang, yeah. So
Yeah.
so I launched Miitra in 2020. So it was a very unique situation, obviously, with what was going on. And
Did,
so I
did you? I'm sorry. I know it was March of 2020. Was it pre-COVID or kind of because of COVID? You finally had the time.
yeah, I basically launched like the first week of March, and then we went into lockdown 2 weeks later. So everyone had been saying COVID, COVID, COVID. No one, I mean, at that point, I don't think any of us really knew how serious it was going to get. So I just launched anyway. And I was like, all right, I'll just do it and whatever. But then when we went into lockdown, I was like, oh, this is serious. So there was that challenge. And at the time, I was an employee at Brooks Brothers, but because of COVID, I got furloughed. So inadvertently, I became a full-time entrepreneur. So I spent all of 2020 solely working on Miitra, which obviously was like a blessing in disguise. Having that time and that focus to really focus on the business really helped it to blossom and to grow. So now in 2021, now being an employee again, and because again, my intention was never to really be a full-time employee, entrepreneur, excuse me, starting out. So, I saw the posting for Helmut. I went for it. I got the job. I started in January of this year, and it definitely has been a challenge. I will not lie to you and say that having a full-time job, or technically having two full-time jobs, is easy. It is not.
Yeah.
So the first few months, it was definitely difficult. Starting out in a new role and kind of having to prove yourself in a company and like putting in the time and the effort to learn how things work. I kind of had to make Helmut Lang my main focus. So now that I am, what is it? It's April. So technically I'm only like 3 months in, but it feels like I've been there for 3 years already with how much I've like learned and established. So I feel a lot more comfortable with the day-to-day at my job now. So I've been able to do a lot more and focus more back onto Miitra. And so now in terms of balancing the both, I think it's really just about establishing boundaries and just knowing that this is the time that I'm carving out for my day job for Helmut. And then once that ends, shift gears and it's all about Miitra. It doesn't matter how many late night emails come in. It doesn't matter if like I didn't finish this one little task. There's always tomorrow. And I think that's really important to remember, that when you have a job and when you're working in fashion, it's a 24-hour, 7 days a week business. It never ends. It never stops. You have a team in another country on the other side of the world that continues working once you're done.
Yeah.
So if you want fashion to consume your entire life, it can. And I think it's really important to establish that boundary and say, this is when I stop, and then this is when everything else continues. So that's really just my mindset on balancing, work, my business, and also my personal life. So.
Yeah, sounds healthy for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk to us a little bit about onboarding during COVID? I don't know if you guys are fully in person or some sort of hybrid.
Yeah. So, every company is different right now. At Helmut, we are kind of doing half in the office, half at home. Basically, we come into the office whenever we need to be there. So if we have a fitting or if we have things that we need to approve, we come in for that. Right now, we're just starting spring, so we're working on inspiration and gathering research and things like that. So we do a lot of that at home, obviously, but then also as a sweater designer, I have to come in, I have to look at yarns and materials. So we come in to look at things like that. So it's about 50-50 right now, and the company updates us every few months, and they're like, we're going to continue to work like this for the next 3 months, and then we'll update you and let you know what's going on. So for now, it's pretty flexible, which is nice. And like most companies, they're very strict about COVID. We have to do check-ins every day. You have to fill out this form and let them know how you're feeling, yada yada yada. If you're sick, obviously stay home. No one's allowed in the business inside of the building unless you're pre-approved. So they're doing everything they can to keep everyone safe.
Yeah. Oh, that's great.
Mm-hmm.
So when you decided you wanted to launch your own business, how did you get it started? How did you find the right contacts overseas and start with marketing, all that, everything?
Yeah. Well, it's I've worked in the industry for almost 10 years now, and I can honestly say that I just use Google. So,
Yeah.
I do have some good connections. Again, as a sweater designer, it's primarily for sweaters. Like most of the factories and vendors that I know are sweater and knitwear related. So based on what I wanted to start with my brand, Silk Scarves, I couldn't really utilize any of those things. So when I kind of got the idea that that's where I want to start it, I just simply did a Google search and I did some intensive research. I found a couple of factories that I were interested in. I work with factories all the time. I know how to communicate with them. So I just asked all the right questions. I think they just understood that I was either a designer or I was serious about what I wanted to do. So I just found the one that one had the best minimums, because that's very important when you're starting a new business. You don't want to get locked into really high minimums and high prices. And yeah, I just kind of went from there, and I'm really happy with the factory that I work with now. They are based in the US and they also print in Italy. And the quality is really great. It's a company, a factory that's worked with a lot of high-end designers, so I could really vouch for their quality, and I'm really happy with how the product has turned out.
That's great.
Also, in terms of packaging and things like that, it's the same deal. You can do a lot on Google. Etsy is also a really good place to look for packaging, which I was surprised by, honestly. But that's a great place to look too.
So how did you come up with your brand logo and stuff? Did you do that yourself?
Oh, I did that myself. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
and then
as a designer, I have that's part of the deal with the graphic design side. I had all those skills and not a lot of money to get started up, so you kind of have to do a lot of the groundwork yourself.
All of your sleeves. Yeah. That's
Exactly.
Great. And then you took your logo and you went on Etsy and said, "Hey, can you help me make tag?" I don't know what you have for your packaging. Is it just tags?
So we have so in addition to the scarves, everything is shipped in a cotton cloth bag. So I just went on to Etsy. I just literally typed in custom logo cloth bags, and I found you'll see a whole bunch of vendors. Some are just regular people in their house. Some are actual factories, either based in the country or overseas. I found one, again, that looked good, and I had a private conversation with them and said, hey, this is what I need. This is what I'm looking for. This is the number I'm looking for. Give me your price.
Yeah.
And they were like, okay. And awesome. I got a great price, and we just made it happen. And 2 weeks later, I got bags in the mail.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. You mentioned a term when we were just talking. You said the word minimums, which I just want to go through in case people are not aware of what that is. But usually, the more units you buy of something, the less it costs you to buy it, because it's cheaper for the factory to do one setup and run, thousands of units through than less units. And some factories will say, I have a certain minimum amount that I'm willing to do, because otherwise, if you're under that amount, it's just not even worth my time. So I won't even bother. And that, I think, is a term that you'll come across a lot in the industry, is the minimum term, and especially when you get into higher end things, which I imagine. I imagine a helmet's also an issue, because some of your stuff's really expensive. So I don't want to touch it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's definitely important. Minimums, MOQs, those are all very important things, and you will hear it all the time as you start working. So.
Yeah, definitely. So you mentioned that you decided you wanted to get into knitwear while you were at FIT, but did you know you always wanted to go that path, or was it a certain class that kind of opened your eyes?
Yeah, I always knew I wanted to be a sweater designer. Before I got into FIT for undergrad, I took their high school courses.
Oh, cool.
While I was I took their high school courses, and I just did a couple of like art classes, like sketching classes, and I think I took a sewing class as well. And I just remember we went on a swatch trip to Mood, of course. And I was always drawn, even though it's cut and sew, I was drawn to like the big rolls of sweater yardage that they have there. I'm a very like tactile person. I love texture. Just everything about it got me really excited about creating and making product. So I just kind of made that connection really early on, that's just what I enjoyed. So as I explored it more while I was at FIT for undergrad, it just really solidified that that's what I wanted to do with my life. So I just went full on into it.
Yeah, that's great. So what do you feel like has been the hardest part of the last year with getting off the ground, the company?
I think the hardest part, I mean, just in general, I think the hardest part has been marketing and kind of getting the brand out there and getting it exposed in the right way. For anyone who wants to start their own business and run a business, I think, you kind of learn quickly that a lot of marketing and PR is pay for play. It's hard to generate PR unless you have someone doing it for you on a larger scale. And a lot of these agencies, they are very costly. I will say that for sure. And if you want to be on like Oprah's list, I don't even know the name of the list, like her favorite thing list, like you need someone to put you there. So I think that's been hard because I've really been trying to generate the buzz on my own or do it in smaller ways. And it's definitely possible, but I think when you're doing it on your own, it's a lot harder.
Yeah.
But, one of the silver linings, I should say, about 2020 is that with everything going on, I think the way the brand was positioned really helped it get a lot of eyes on it. And I think the messages of positivity that are on all of these scarves. It's something that I think a lot of people wanted at that time. People were looking for positivity. They wanted to feel uplifted and empowered. So I was able to get a lot of organic press out of that simply because of the nature of the product. So in that sense, I got really lucky. And also, with a lot going on in terms of social justice, people wanted to support Black-owned businesses. And I was lucky. I was one of those brands that people really wanted to support at the time. So I think it really gave the brand a big push. So I feel really, fortunate for that.
Yeah, that's great. And it's hopefully a momentum that will continue. Maybe a silver lining of 2020. So can you talk to us a little bit about your life day to day at Helmut? You mentioned going in for certain things, but what does a week in the life of a associate designer look like?
Yeah, sure. So I think one of the things I love most about Helmut, again, is the flexibility that we have. Our design team is very small. It's basically, in terms of the sweater design, it's me and a senior designer. That's it. And then in terms of woven design, there are 3 designers. So we're a very small team. We collaborate all the time. We kind of talk to each other. But also one of the things that's very unique about Helmut is we don't have a creative director.
Oh,
So, and that's
that
very
is
unique.
big. Yeah.
That's probably not a situation many people will encounter.
And is it always that way, or is it just kind of happen to be that way right now?
It's that way right now. They've had some transitions in the company for a while. Obviously, Helmut is no longer involved in the company, hasn't been for years. They've had a couple of different creative directors come in. Some have been successful, some haven't. And right now, they're kind of just, I think they're just waiting it out for the right person.
Uh-huh.
So since we don't have a creative director,
And it's owned by Theory, right?
yes,
And
well,
you're
Fast
in the same space.
Retailing,
Yeah. Okay.
owned
Yeah.
by Fast Retailing. Fast Retailing owns Theory and Helmut Lang.
Yeah.
Both brands are in the same building. Yes. So because we don't have a creative director, we set the tone for the collection, which is again very unique and really special. So in terms of what the day-to-day is like, it's I wake up, I get a text from the senior designer, and she's like, let's work from home today. And I'm like, okay. So it's a mix of doing research. It's a mix of like coming into the office and planning, doing fittings if that's what we have. It depends on the stage of the season we're in. It's a lot of sketching. It's a lot of just fixing up boards and putting together mood inspiration to show the higher ups, like the executive team. We last week we actually had a meeting with all of the execs, so we had to show them all of our boards for resort and kind of just sell them on our ideas, which thankfully they were okay with.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's lab approvals, it's choosing yarn and materials. There is a large component of working on the computers and doing tech packs and fit comments, things like that. That'll always be part of your job as well. So yeah, it's a lot of it is really dependent on where we are in the season. But I say like particularly for this week, things are a little bit relaxed because we're in between seasons. We just finished resort, we're starting spring, so now we're doing research, we're starting to pull yarns, things that we just like for this season, and we're going to start looking at color palettes soon. And we're also waiting for protos to come in for resort, so we're going to start fitting soon, and then moving through all of that and trying to get our SMS in and working with our sales and merchandising team. So it's a little bit relaxed, but it's going to get crazy soon again too.
Yeah, yeah. And how is your business driven from sales versus direct to consumer there? Is it bigger on the wholesale front or on the, on their own?
My business or Helmut Lang?
At Helmut Lang.
Okay.
Yeah.
Helmut Lang is, they definitely do both. We do direct to consumer via online, and we also have a store on Washington Street in the meatpacking district. But we also do a lot of wholesale. You can find the product at Saks. I think they're at Bergdorf. It's a couple of retailers, like
Higher end.
retailers
Yeah.
and everything. Yeah, the higher end retailers. You can pretty much go on all of them and see some Helmut Lang product there. So
yeah. How many SKUs do you put out a season?
So we probably do anywhere between like 20 to 25 adopted. So obviously if we want 20 adopted in the end SKUs, which also include colorways, we're going to develop we should be developing about 30% over that, but it's always more. So
yeah.
Sometimes it's 50, 60, sometimes like 70%, which is really high. We shouldn't be that high because it's a waste.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's your development dollars. It's like if it's going to drop in the end, you should kind of try to control that. But things happen. We get excited. We want to see a lot of things.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's generally at least double the amount you will develop to get to your adoption.
So just in case you guys aren't aware of the term adopted or adoption, would be so the design team goes out, makes a whole line of things, then it goes into market, and the buyers or the wholesale sales team will whittle it down to the styles that are actually going to get made. And that would be like the adopted styles that were made. So in an ideal world, 100% of what's developed gets made, and there's no waste like you're talking about, and there's no, upset feelings from the factories that made you sample prototypes and things like that. But in reality, every company kind of has different goals on what their adoption rates are and how many make it all the way through. So
yes, exactly.
Thank you, though. That was a good term to throw out there.
Yeah.
I also feel like you glossed over fittings, and you may not be my first speaker talking about that this semester, but do you want to tell them what a fitting is?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
In the corporate world.
Yeah. So at every stage of the garment, we fit it. So like I said, we just finished resort. So we passed off all our tech packs. We sent them to the factories. So now this week and next week, we should be receiving our first protos. And once we get them, we arrange our fittings, we bring in our fit models, we put them on the models, and then we just go through everything. We decide, do we like this neckline? Do we like the way the body is fitting? Do you want to change the sleeve length? And you assess all your design details, you make your changes, and then you remeasure everything, you do the comments, and you send it back to the factory. Depending on how many changes there are, you'll see another proto. Sometimes you'll see 3 protos. Usually 3 is the most. Sometimes you'll see more, but sometimes you don't do a fitting and you just go straight into your showroom sample, which is a very scary thing to do, but it happens. And then, yeah, you just keep going along that process, and you get your showroom samples. That's what your merch team will sell with. But then once they're done with them, you take them back, you fit those, and then you move into production. So again, and it's a similar process. You keep fitting until you get it right. And then once it's approved, it goes to bulk or production. And then that's when they make all the samples. And then, depending where you work, you might also see a TOP, which is top of production. You get those in. You basically do a very basic check, because at that point, it's too late in the stage to really make any major changes. But I actually did that today. I had some TOPs come in that I had to check, basic measurements, making sure the hand feel and the yarn is good, making sure the pressing, the packaging looks good, and then you send the comments, and then they ship everything out, and hopefully it all gets shipped on time. So, but yeah, that's really the process of fitting.
Yeah, and you just mentioned that you just finished up with resort, so you guys work about what, like 9 months out?
Yeah, about. Because resort ships, resort will be in stores in November. So yes.
Yeah. Ish. How do you feel like you keep yourself up to date on what the latest trends are from a design perspective?
So I saw this question on your list, and I was like, should I lie?
No, tell us the truth. I feel like you can be inspired anywhere. I've heard very different answers to this, so I'm very intrigued.
Yeah. So honestly, like, no one uses WGSN or any of those like trend forecasting stuff. One, they're way too expensive, and I just don't think they're that great either. And also, it's like, I think it's a surefire way to end up looking kind of generic in the end. To be honest, in terms of like figuring out what sort of trending, we mostly just look at the shows and kind of just analyze everything, and then kind of make a conclusion on our own based on like what we're seeing mostly from the higher end designers. And then that's what people take, and then you kind of like do your own version based on your company's DNA. But in terms of like the way I've always worked from the past jobs that I've had to the one I have now, we've never really been super trend driven. It's not like we're like, oh, this is happening, so we have to do it. I've had the luxury of working at places that are kind of just like, we're just gonna do our own thing, and like, we're just gonna go out there, we're gonna look at things, we're gonna shop vintage, we're gonna like read books, or like we're getting inspired from like a TV show that we see, and like we're just gonna figure out the direction that we feel right about. And I really enjoy designing that way, and I think it's the best way to really design, and to make sure that you're staying creative and innovative, and you're not just like regurgitating the things that you see out there.
Yeah, I love that. That's great.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, and then you guys are coming up with a collective plan as a design team for
Yeah.
like for spring 2022, which you're talking about now.
Mhm.
You kind of all go out, do your own, you know, living your own life basically to be
Yeah,
inspired,
exactly.
and then come together and kind of decide on what that general direction will be.
Yeah, exactly. That's pretty much how it works. So again, we have the wovens team and then there's the sweater team, and you'll find as you work that they basically operate as two separate teams, and then eventually you come together and you kind of like decide, yeah, I mean, we have our direction, they have theirs, we come together, we share it, and then we're just like, oh yeah, we really like that idea, they like this idea, then we exchange things, we see what can work and how you can really blend things together so there's cohesion. Yeah, and that's pretty much how it works, and that's also how we work with color. Like we'll have the color that we kind of are gravitating to, and then they'll have theirs, and then we kind of just bring it together and see what really works and what direction we want to take it.
Cool. And maybe you don't love this question, but what's your favorite trend of the season right now?
Yeah, I don't have that answer. Basically, well, honestly, from the research that I was doing for our resort and kind of the tone that we were setting, quilting was a big trend that I saw in a lot of shows, and it's something that we're working on for the brand, and we're doing it in a really different way, and I think it's going to be really cool if we can achieve it. We'll see. We're getting protos soon. I hope they look. So,
that's exciting.
Right now, I would say that's my favorite trend. So
yeah. What would you say is your personal style philosophy?
For me, it's just simplicity is key. So that's how I like to design. It's the way I kind of like focus my personal brand as well for Miitra, and it's also just like how I like to design for the most part for the brands I've worked for. I think there's a lot of over design out there, and I think editing is critical. And, you know, I see things a lot where I'm just like, I just wish they would have taken that one thing off, and then that garment would have been perfect.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I think for me, it's just about using really great materials, keeping things high quality, and just allowing either the material or that one beautiful feature and let that kind of like be the star of the show rather than just like throwing a bunch of different things on a garment. So yeah, I don't know, for me it's simplicity.
I like that. That's great. What's your biggest piece of advice for anyone who's wanting to launch their own company?
Oh God, that's so hard. I think it's because I have like tons of advice for anyone who wants to start.
That's okay. Give it to all. Give it all up.
I would say, well, one, just start, because I think oftentimes when you want to start a business, you kind of want the situation to be perfect. You want your circumstance to be perfect. You want to make sure you have like all the money in the world, but that's never going to happen. So just get started, start small, keep it simple, and then you grow from there. I think, you know, oftentimes we're always focused on the end result, like the finish line, where we want to be. Like you want to be this big grand company who's like goes viral and everyone loves your stuff, but it takes time to work up to that. So just get started and take it day by day, and you're going to learn so much and you're going to grow and you'll figure it out as you go. So definitely that. And my next piece of advice is definitely understand what you want, understand your product, and understand and really figure out how to be unique in the market. I think the way you position yourself in the market makes such a big difference, because there's so much stuff out there in the world, so much product. And frankly, a lot of it is really beautiful. And so you have to convince the consumer to buy your stuff. Like, so what's going to separate your very beautiful product from all this other beautiful product? So I think it's really understanding what the purpose of your brand is and the purpose of the product, what the end use is, how it services your customer, and just always being customer centric and customer focused. So yeah, I think that those are my two biggest pieces of advice.
Yeah, well, great segue into my last question, which is, well, so positive representation of the Black community is a big part of your mission.
Yeah.
And is this something that you personally have felt like you've struggled with in the industry? And, you know, why did you choose that?
Yeah. So working in fashion, I can say that I've always been the only Black designer in the room. So, and it's a bit of a jarring statement because, you know, I love this industry. I've always wanted to be a designer, but I think the longer I've worked, the less, you know, I think I always imagined the industry being more diverse than it actually is. And so once you start working, you realize that there really just isn't a lot of diversity. And I think the higher up you go in the hierarchy, the less diversity there is. So, you know, in starting Miitra, it was kind of my way of saying, hey, I want people who look like me to feel heard and to feel seen and to be represented, because a lot of brands don't represent my community. So it's really important for me to kind of get that messaging out there, to like really work with these inspirations that I think really connects with me and my community, and really put that out there so that, you know, again, people who look like me can feel like they have product that really represents them. And I think that's important. Yeah. But also, like, just in terms of the industry in general, again, it's like I really want to see a little bit more effort of these brands like pushing diversity. I don't think it's enough just to have, you know, people of color and more women and like the trans community, the LGBTQ community on like covers of magazines. That's great. But if you're not including these people in the decision making at the company level, then it's all sort of futile to me. Like, you know, I think most executive teams are still very male. There aren't even like enough women at the top making decisions, and it's very problematic because I don't personally believe that a group of older men should be telling women what they need to look like. So I think just in general, it's really time for the industry to change. It's time for the industry to become more inclusive. And it starts with this, you know, more brands being out there by different people.
Yeah, that's great. I love that. Not that you have, not that the industry itself has been a stressor, but that you are taking this leap and having fun with it, and it's going well. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I haven't had like any like crazy or bad experiences, like, or whether it be socially or racist, racially, or like any sexist crazy things have happened to me on a personal level. That hasn't happened, but
yeah.
But you do hear stories. They do happen. They happen in every industry. So it's just really important to be mindful of that.
Totally. Yeah, that's great. Well, I know that I had gotten a lot of response from students before class started, so I have a feeling I have a lot of questions out there. So you guys want to throw some hands up if you have some questions to ask?
I would do my best to answer them.
Yeah. Caleb. He's coming. There he is.
Hello. Thank you so much for coming in today.
Hi.
So, well, for one, I want to say, like, this was, like, very, very inspiring. Just, like,
oh, yay.
You know, seeing someone else that, like, is, like, a young, like, person of color, like, out here, like, starting your business. And I feel like, you know, like, just from, like, hearing you talking today, it seems like you're really, like, putting in the work. And I just, like, really appreciate that because I feel like I don't see that much. And, you know, like, that's what, like, my friends, like, I are really trying to do. So it's just really cool to see them out here, like, living their dreams and making their dreams come true. So it's like really inspiring.
Oh, yay.
And then secondly, I am actually planning on moving to Europe this summer. I applied to a school over there, but I have family who lives over there, so I'm gonna go live with them for a few months. But I was thinking about kind of like trying to find a job and also like kind of working on my own business as like kind of like a side hustle, just to like, you know, like I can make clothes, so like why not, you know?
Hmm.
But I guess like you touched on, you know, that there's not as many opportunities out there. I guess, do you have any like tips on like, you know, really trying to establish yourself or like make connections in the UK or Europe?
Yeah. Well, thank you for your question, and I think that's super dope that you're, taking the leap and just going. That's kind of what I did. I was just like, whatever, I'm just gonna like go over there and make it work. So,
Mhm.
I think it's a really courageous choice. I think it's great that you have family that you can kind of depend on a little bit because again, the UK is also very expensive. In terms of, finding work there, I would like to reiterate that I do think it's challenging because again, each country jobs are really meant for the people who live there. So
Right.
you will need a visa
Hmm.
to work there. So that means you will need to be sponsored by the company. I think visas are a lot more challenging to get than they used to be. I don't want to discourage you, but I do think maybe if you can try to
No.
intern first, that could be very helpful. They will probably accept you as an intern. Hopefully they'll pay you. I'm not sure. Mine was unpaid, but again, I was living with family as well when I went over to London. But I think interning is a great way to get yourself in the door and kind of like show them what you're all about, show them your skills, show them that you're valuable. And then you can kind of like meet people that way. You can build relationships, get some connections, and then try to translate that into a full-time paid role. I can't say that it's like a surefire way to make it happen, but it's the route that I would take if that were my plan.
Okay, that helps a lot. I saw like online doing some research. I wasn't sure if people would accept me without a visa for an internship, so I was like kind of unsure, but that makes me feel a lot better.
Yeah, I think it depends on the company that you're interested in interning with. I think probably the bigger the company, the more likely they'll probably want a visa. I didn't have a visa when I went over. I literally just sent them an email and they emailed me back and they were like, sure, come. It's like, okay. I don't want to see you get into trouble though. So I would definitely do the research beforehand because again, I went over without a visa and technically that was illegal. So
Mm.
I don't want to guide you in the wrong way. And I did get into a little bit of trouble while I was there. So basically, if you're there, you have to like keep your story straight and like, but never mind. I shouldn't be guiding you on how to do things the wrong way. So all I'm gonna say is I left London. I tried to come back and they would not let me in.
Okay.
So yeah, you just want to be careful. I definitely suggest going about it the right way. Just start sending out some feeler emails, see what they say, see if they're willing to give you a visa, or I don't know the law, so maybe you don't need it, but I would definitely try to do the research before you go.
And this is like
Okay.
maybe 20-year-old advice here, but my sister, when she first graduated from college, she went to work for a company that basically supplied temps. And so they would supply your visa, but it was like a 6-month visa. And then you could go and work in a variety of places. And I don't know how specific you can get. Like, I don't know if you could go to this company and be like, I only want jobs in the fashion world, temp wise.
Mm.
But then that's an opportunity that's open to you to then turn it into something else that would get you a more longer visa, but it gets you in the door for 6 months.
Okay.
I can find out the
Mhm.
name of it too and email you, Caleb, because it's escaping me off the top of my head, but
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate
it
that.
would be worth
It's
exploring.
a good place to at least start. So
Yeah, exactly. Mikayla. Oh, I'm sorry, Caleb. Are you have any other questions? Or you?
Oh no, that was
Okay.
it. Thank you so
Okay.
much. I
Thanks.
appreciate the time.
thank you.
Mikayla, you're next.
You're muted.
Yeah, you're muted. There you are.
I can hear you.
Oh,
Can
we
you
can
hear
hear
me
you
now?
now. Yep.
Nice.
Hi, I'm sorry. So It's nice to meet you, first of all. It's good to see a Black woman here.
Hi.
I've been through
Thank
the
you.
Mitra website. I'm very impressed. I really love the design and the aesthetic of everything. I've noticed a lot of the positive affirmations on the scarves and whatnot, and one that really stood out to me was however long the night, the dawn will always break. I just kind of wanted to know the meaning behind that message.
Yeah, of course. Thank you. And thank you for going to the site and checking everything out. So that particular phrase, one, is an African proverb, and it's a theme that you'll see throughout a lot of my work. Again, establishing this business, I wanted to work with Black inspiration and themes that really resonated with me and people who look like me in my community. So that particular proverb is all about having resilience and having hope and having faith that you can prosper and that you can grow and you can get better through tough times. So however long the dawn will break. I'm sorry, sometimes I forget the phrases, but that one is really one of my favorites because it just reminds you to stay strong and stay resilient and that, you can make it through whatever. There's nothing that's going to defeat you in life. Sometimes you just got to wait it out. You just have to be strong and you just have to be faithful. That's really what that's about. Yeah, of course. Thank you.
Thank you. Andrew, you're up next.
Hello, can you see me and hear me?
Yes, hi.
Nice to meet you. Thank you for coming in and speaking with us today.
Yeah, of course.
My question is, how did you organize your knitwear portfolio in preparation for a job after FIT? And I'm wondering if it was more drawing based or construction based.
That's a good question. Definitely more art based. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think people care about your construction skills. After I left FIT, that was probably one of my biggest criticisms of the school is that I think they spend a little bit too much time focusing on construction for their students when they really should be pushing art more because people want to see not so much how you draw because you won't really be doing a ton of like artistic sketches, but they do want to see how good you are at hand sketching. They want to see how good you are at working at Illustrator, and they want to see that you can like come up with a concept and really show how you're extrapolating that information and how you're really, interpreting that into your designs. I think you should spend like if I were to break it up, I would want to see at least like 2 full, maybe 11 by 14 pages of just inspiration. Imagery that really looks good, imagery that shows that you have taste level, and that there's cohesion in what you're like, all in your imagery and your mood. So I think that's really important. And then I think it's really important just to show, again, obviously, if you have beautiful sketches, that definitely helps. But just showing that you know how to just put a garment together. It's important to know construction in the sense of, designing. They want to see that, you need to put a rib at the bottom of your sweater or that you're putting like top stitching on a woven garment or something like that. But other than that, it's not like you're going to go into your job and start sewing. No one does that. So I would definitely say, focus heavily on your inspiration and mood, show really good sketches, and then of course, we want to see flat sketches as well. I think depending on the company, it's a toss-up of whether they'd rather see hand sketches or like Illustrator CADs, but I would really focus on just being good at both because, at my previous job, all we did was Illustrator sketches. At this current job at Helmut Lang, we don't do Illustrator at all. It's all hand sketching. So I think it's just really important to just be able to do both. So yeah, I think just start off lots of inspiration, lots of beautiful imagery, great sketches, show like a couple of designs, and then go from there.
That's really helpful, thank you. And then I have one more question if there's time.
Of course.
I wanted to ask you, what was your your favorite learning experience taking the knitwear program? I'm starting next semester, so I'm just wondering, what are your experiences from the program?
Oh, nice. Congratulations. You're taking a very good path. I say that just because, anyone going into sportswear, you should be warned. It is very competitive. It's a very big pool of applicants going for a small pool of jobs. Knitwear, there's less of us, and it's a little bit easier to get a job because obviously there's less qualified applicants. So, but to answer your question, honestly, I really enjoyed most of the knitwear classes. There's one that I think they need to cut out of the program that I don't know if it's still there. There's this one where you do like you take old sweaters and you just cut them up and you like sew them together. I think it's completely pointless because that's cut and sew, not fully fashioned sweaters. But again, like I said previously, I think when you really start working on the machinery, that's when you really start learning and really start conceptualizing and really understanding the structure of knits. And it's really, I don't know, there's like the techie side of me that really enjoyed that. And it's just like a great blend of being really creative and just almost like geeky in a way and kind of blending those two together. I had a really great professor at the time. His name was Alan Ames. I don't think he's there anymore, but he was just so good and so passionate about sweaters, and it just showed in everything he did. And I hope that there's still a professor like that there who's like really loves sweaters and is really good at what they do, because I think it makes such a big difference. So yeah, I just say you're gonna start taking the brother machine classes. Those are really good too. I think it really helps you to hone in those skills that are really necessary, because learning the structure of knits is really important. People are going to want to know that you know what a 1x1 rib is versus like full needle rib, half cardigan. Those are the sort of things that I would be looking for if I was interviewing someone for like an assistant position, that you really understand the difference between all of these knit structures. So I would say definitely try to focus on that.
Mm-hmm. That's great. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Great questions. I love those. Justin, you're up next.
Hello, how you doing?
Hi.
Hi.
Hi. So I know growing a small brand could be very difficult, especially like financing a lot of things. But I feel like as designers now in 2020, we kind of like, especially in school, we have like an obligation to design from a more sustainable standpoint. I want to know kind of your opinion on taking your brand in a more sustainable route, or kind of saving money, but also having it sustainable, which is actually kind of really difficult. What could be very difficult.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you for your question. I completely agree with you. I think sustainability should be a main focus of every single brand in 2021. I don't think it even makes sense at this point to start off something without having sustainability in mind. It's what's best for the world and our environment. And frankly, I think that's what most consumers are sort of looking for at this point. They want to know that, they're buying this garment or this product and it's having a positive impact on the world. So I don't think it's as, hard or as expensive as it used to be, because it's so prominent now that most factories and vendors sort of have the options for recycled materials, for like poly bags that what's it called, the ones that like disintegrate,
Biodegradable,
and all of that kind of stuff. So I think honestly, if you just start asking those questions with your factory, they have the options for you.
Cool, thank you.
I completely agree. I think it's 100% the right way to go. We all have the responsibility to design with purpose and to like save this world that we're living in, especially in fashion, because we are I think we're the #2 industry that's like destroying the world. So
Yeah.
we have to be the ones who change it.
Right. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks.
Jack, how about you? We hear you, but we don't see you yet.
See me now?
Hi.
Hello. All right, so my first thing is, this is really my question. It's just something that I just remembered. But last summer, Helmut Lang, like the social media team, did like an online contest where it's like people could submit designs and it gets like top 10 gets like featured or something like that. Were you
Okay.
part of the judging team for those
No.
designs?
No, I joined Helmut
Okay.
this January, so no. Why, did they do
Oh,
something
that's
shady?
right. Okay. Yeah, no, I was wondering because I remember I submitted for that design, but it's like the time I wanted to actually make a design for it, but then like the time slipped away, so I just like whipped up something like 30 minutes. I was like, they're either gonna think I'm trolling or maybe somebody might think it's genius. So, but I didn't win. But
I wonder if they're going to do it again. Any
But
thing? If they're going to do it again,
Mhm.
do you know, Dimitra?
I'm not sure. It's not something that I've heard of, so I'm not
Yeah.
sure if they're going to do it.
No, that's cool.
Okay. And for my first question, so when it comes to a brand continuing on without the designer, when you and your team like begins the design process, are you trying to keep the designer's like signature style like kind of in mind, or like are you trying to sort of like imitate them, or are you like after like so long, like after all the years that Helmut Lang's left the company, is it like kind of going just go like in its own direction a little bit?
Yeah. So yeah, Helmut left, I think in 2020, 2005 or something like that. 2005, I think, something like that. So basically the way we design now is, Helmut has such like a cult following, and it's because of Helmut, because of the way he designed and, his look from the 90s and everything that everyone loves about Helmut. It's what I love about Helmut too. We don't follow that, and personally, I think it's problematic. I wish that's the stuff we were designing, but we kind of have to keep a little bit of that Helmut vein in everything that we design, but also push it forward. And we do, as you see when you're working, your merchandising, your sales team have a little bit too much say in how you design things. So we can only push it so far. And of course, our executive team also sets the tone. They kind of are the ones who are like, well, Helmut did too many cutouts, and we think that it's a little too sexy or sometimes a little too racy, and we don't want to see that anymore. And whether we agree with that or not, if that's the tone and that's the direction they set, we have to follow it. So I think, in terms of the design team, it can be a little difficult sometimes because, I think all of us would love to get back to that core Helmut look, but we can only do it in like certain little doses. So I think it's a little bit about keeping the DNA, but also evolving it for the times. And again, sometimes you agree, sometimes you don't. So again, until you start your own brand, you don't get to make those decisions.
And for my second question, so as far as challenges that you face starting your own company and like the usual ones that kind of apply to all designers, like expenses and like timing and whatnot, was there any challenges that were unique to you personally that you needed to kind of like overcome yourself?
Yeah, I completely agree. I think obviously finances are a big deal, marketing is a big deal, but I think just like, they call it imposter syndrome is also like a big deal. With my first set of scarves, the first 3 I did, I had a really great response to that. And then like it almost made me nervous. And I was just like, oh, people really like that. So then when I started developing the second collection, I was like really in my head about it. And I was just, it made me a little insecure. I think I started doubting myself a little bit that I could do it again, basically. And basically get the same sort of hype around the brand that I had with the first collection with the second. And, after talking to designers, I think everyone sort of feels that. I remember once while I was working for Kim Haller, I overheard Derek Lam saying that, he had a really great season, and then he was feeling really, really insecure and kind of struggled when he was making the next collection, because you never know if the response is going to be the same or if you're going to get that same level of positivity directed towards your collection. So I think that's just something that a lot of creatives sort of deal with. You kind of get really in your head. You take things really personal about your work and your craft and your artistry. But I think you just kind of got to get over it so that you can move forward. And you just have to get to a place where you just feel really happy and proud about what you're putting out. And you just have to learn how to validate yourself rather than just accepting the validation from the outside world. So that was a little challenging for me, but I think at this point I've sort of moved past that.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jack. Simone, I have you next.
Okay. 1 second. Hi, how are you?
Hi.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you, you too.
So I have like kind of a two-part question. So do you think it's crucial to work for someone else as a designer before you start your own brand? And in hindsight, do you think that you would have been prepared to start your brand right after graduating?
I think it is extremely important to work before you start your brand. I know a lot of people kind of come out of school and they just want to do it. I think that's also fine if you feel confident and comfortable, but you just learn so much from working. And I think those experiences are so valuable. They not only teach you the right things to do, but they also teach you the wrong things to do in your business. And I think that's really critical. I have seen so many mistakes over my career that I'm just like, all I could think to myself is like, if I was running this business, I would never do that. So I think it's really important to, one, gain the experience and kind of learn those things, but also like, you gain so many contacts and so many, you just gain so many contacts and like vendors, and you learn about factories, and then you're just like, okay, let me put this over to the side for when I'm ready to use them, because they will work with you. So they'll work with anyone, honestly, as long as you have the money. So I think it's really important. And also you're establishing a relationship. So if you reach out to a factory and they already know you, they're going to be more likely to work with you. They're going to be more likely to give you a deal or to give you a bargain or to help you get your brand off, just started. There's one particular factory that I worked with in the past that I'm planning on working with in the future, and I've already reached out to him, and he's like, yeah, just let me know when you're ready. So I already have the introduction, so yeah, so I definitely suggest working first. But I mean, listen, if you have a ton of money and you just want to do it, then do it. So, but that's the thing. Most of us don't have a ton of money to just like play around and experiment with. So,
thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks. Hawa, you're up next.
Hi. Hey.
Hi.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Oh, this is so cool. I mean, honestly,
I can hear you.
there's I've never seen so many people of color in a design class before. This is very exciting for me to see. It was not like this when I was at FIT. Just to throw that out there. So please, yes. What is your question?
Uh-oh. Hawa, we can't hear you anymore. I don't know if it looks like you're back on mute.
Oh, sorry, I shouldn't have talked.
We lost her. I think we totally lost her. She'll be back, I'm sure.
Let's see her back.
Yeah, we'll give her 1 second. I feel like on rainy days the connections are always worse. I don't know if other students have experienced this, but at least on my end, I have. I think she's got no video. Let's go to Lancy, and then hopefully she'll be back by the time we're done. Lancy, you want to go?
Yes, hello.
Hi.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, you're great.
Okay, first, thank you for coming in. It's really great to hear your story.
Thank you.
So my question would be, I've checked your website and I saw a lot of pretty scarves. So my question would be, I know that you also design your logo. That's very cool. But beside that, do you have a design, like graphic design team to work on all of the patterns or graphics, or would you like to collaborate with like other individual artists?
Yeah, so no, I don't have a graphic design team. I wish I did, but for Miitra, it's just me. I do everything, and that is not me bragging. That is me saying that, one, I can't afford to hire anyone. Although I will say I just recently started working with a PR agency just because I will say that if you do start your own business, you most likely will start off doing everything on your own, which is fine. But I would say as soon as you can afford to, it's a good idea to start branching out and like delegating and giving off pieces of the business to others, because you just simply cannot do it all by yourself. It's not sustainable. It's not easy. I don't think it's how anyone should live their life, but no, in terms of like the graphic design, the design of the scarves, I do everything myself. I just do everything in Photoshop and Illustrator, and then I just JPEG everything and send it to my factory, and we go from there. So, and in terms of the other part of the question, yes, I would love to collaborate with other brands, with other businesses, organizations. I do have something in the pipeline in terms of doing a little like exclusive with another brand. So hopefully that'll work out, but we'll see. But yeah, definitely I'm open to all types of things for the future.
It's really cool.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I have another question that as a designer that work on your own brand and also as a designer in another company, what would be the biggest difference, like working in different environments, I guess?
What's the biggest difference between, I'm sorry, I didn't hear the last part of your sentence, of your question.
Yeah, what's the biggest difference like working in different environment, like when you can be in charge of everything and where you need to work as a group?
So again, because of the unique situation at Helmut, I actually, even as an associate designer, I get a lot of say in what I design now, which is awesome. Which is typically not how it works, unfortunately. But I would say that, yeah, it's just that creative control is the biggest difference. With Miitra, it's all me. So I get to decide what I move forward with. I get to decide what's in the line. I get to decide the color. I get to decide the timing of everything. With a traditional job, when you're working, you have a calendar you have to stick to. You most likely will have a creative director, a design director who sets the tone, and you have to follow that. Again, you get to contribute, but once the tone is set, that's what you have to do, whether you agree with it or not. So yeah, definitely creative control is the biggest difference.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course.
Philip Michael, did you want to go next? And do you have a hard stop, Dimitra?
Nope, I can keep going.
Okay, good.
Can you hear and see me?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Hi.
Hi.
Thanks again for speaking. My
course.
question is geared towards being that you have your own brand. Um, my route is a little bit more for us career-wise is costume design, but I do feel like I would like to um, release certain things for my for my own collection or things of that nature. I guess in a sense of your own brand, do you feel the need to release multiple collections a season, or do you really just kind of stick to your own fashion timeline of if you decide to release something this year, maybe wait another year, kind of give yourself time to be more inspired and things of that nature?
Yeah. Well, first, I love costume design. I think it's super dope. And honestly, that would be, if I weren't a fashion designer, I'd be a costume designer. So I love that. And I did costume design in high school, and I think it's so much fun. So I hope that works out for you.
Thank you.
In terms of, releasing product, I just work on my own timeline. I work when I'm inspired. I refuse to put out anything just because a calendar is telling me to do it. I think it's the stupidest way to design. I think the fashion industry needs to let go of it completely. I think we need to design buy now, wear now. I think that we need to work in downtimes more with factories. I just think the calendar is so archaic and no one shops like that. It doesn't make any sense anymore. So, and I just feel like pushing out product just because it's supposed to be there it doesn't make any sense. And for me, the way I work, we all know it. We're all designers. Just because you guys are in school, you guys are designers. You know how this works. Sometimes you feel really creative and really inspired, and then sometimes you have moments where there's nothing. It's just not there. And I don't believe in forcing things, because when you force it, it's not right. And your customer is going to know it's not right either, and they're not going to buy it. So for me, it's just when I feel the inspiration, that's when I work, and then I try to push the product as fast as I can, obviously keeping the quality there. But if it's not there, it's not there. You don't need to force it. When you're doing your own thing, that's the beauty of having your own business. You can do whatever you want. And I've fully embraced that at this point.
Love that. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thanks. Hawa, back to you.
Yes.
Hey.
Hey,
Sorry about that.
it's okay.
Hey. Nice to meet you, by the way. It's great having you on here.
Nice to meet you too.
Thank you. So I'm going the technical design route next semester after this 1-year program that I'm doing. And I've heard once you get into technical, it's kind of hard to get back into the fashion design area of it. But for me personally, I'm just doing technical so that I save money for my own brand, and I'm working on my. Does that make sense? Okay. So I'm just trying to gain skills so that I have so I can do it on my own. So I don't have to pay this factory over here, this factory over here, to do everything for me when I have multiple niches. Does that make sense? And do you have any advice on how to go about making your own brand by going that route with the technical design? Because I've done 2 years already of fashion, and then this is my 1 year in fashion again.
Okay. Okay, so for the first part of your question, yes, if you start off in technical design, it's going to be very difficult to transition back into design. Most people aren't going to be into that. And to be honest, I understand why.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's okay.
That's not random.
Once you've so there's this thing in fashion, which I don't necessarily agree with, but it's very easy to get pigeonholed into a certain role. Once you start establishing, a lot of experience in one thing, that's sort of where people want to keep you. So if you start off in tech and you want to and if you do want to transition to design, it's going to be a little challenging. You might be able to do it, but your options will probably be a little bit more limited. For instance, Helmut Lang would not hire a technical designer into a design role. That's just not going to happen. We just want people who've had the experience, because like there's a certain amount of like teaching that we just can't do. Like we can help, like as you notice, as you go through the industry, there's certain things that we can teach you, and there's certain things it's just we just don't have the time. So like you're coming into a role to help the people there who are already there get the work done. So if you don't have strong design skills from your previous experience, it's going to be hard. But in your case, if that's really what you want, like just to gain those skills in technical design so you can start your own business and you really are okay with that, then that's a perfect route to go. So like but again, that's all on you. You have to decide if you're okay with that. If you think you're gonna down the line gonna want to get a design job again, then maybe I would rethink that. But also at the same time, do you know what sort of business you want to eventually establish? Will it be garments? Will mostly like woven? Do you want to do sweaters?
Mostly woven and
okay, knits
just
as
very like ready to wear. Yeah,
Mhm.
cut and sew.
Okay, so
plus personally, I have a lot of talent. Not to put my business out there, so I know fashion is not the only thing I'm gonna be doing in my lifetime. So that's why I don't want to overwhelm myself. Like it's better for me to gain different skills, and even in my bachelor's program, I'll be doing other minors where I'll be like testing out my other skills. That's why I was like, in fashion you have to like sew 24/7. Maybe in technical I have a little more time and I'll learn more skills in my other niches as well.
Yeah.
And I'll be learning how to do like the tech packs and all the all that stuff they learned there too. So I don't know.
Yeah. So I mean there's a lot of ways you can go with this. And I'm also not a woven designer. So like as a sweater designer, you're also already very technical because we do our tech packs. We don't usually typically have tech teams. So like that's why I'm like, well, you could get a design position and still be very technical. So again, I think it's really depending on what you want. If you think you're going to be building a business where you're going to do a lot of made to order and you're going to like literally be making the clothes yourself, then maybe going for a tech design role could be very valuable to you. But I feel like I don't know many designers who work that way. Most of us design, we do like our tech packs, and then we send it to a factory to have them made. So you don't even really need to be that technical to get a garment made these days. Factories are very self-sufficient in that. I can tell you, I've done very elaborate tech packs, and I've done very basic things that have been slapped together and thrown in a bag, and I still get a beautiful garment. So yeah, I think again it's really just about what you want. If you're okay starting off in tech and then maybe never having a design job, then sure, go for it. I think that's great because tech designers get paid a lot. And
yeah, that's the only good thing about it.
It is a little less demanding than design jobs. I agree on that. So it does free up your time a little bit to do these other things that you want to explore. But I mean, I'm not going to say it's impossible, but it will be difficult again to transition into design.
Okay, so even if I start doing internships like from the next 2 years, do you think it'll give me, and they're based on fashion, like design, do you think that'll give me a head start? Like they're still like, okay, she has some experience. Because I did one fashion design internship in the past. But do you think if I keep going that route, the companies will still like try to hire me as a designer / technical designer as well?
Well, starting out, I keep forgetting you guys are like in the beginning of your careers too. So yeah, definitely your internships matter when you're starting because I mean that's really the only experience you're gonna get. So yeah, I would definitely say no matter what, and this is for everyone on the call, whatever you want to do, make sure you focus your internships on that. So again, if you want to go into design and you want a designer position in a luxury brand, then that's where you should be interning. If you want to be in a contemporary brand, that's where you should be interning. If you're fine with mass market, then that's totally fine. You can intern there too. If you want to explore things a little bit, maybe you can do one internship in design. Maybe you take the next one in tech so that you can kind of feel it out and figure out what you want. But you have a little bit more flexibility when you're starting out and getting your first job, just because assistant roles, what companies are looking for in an assistant isn't obviously as crazy as what they're looking for from an associate or a senior designer. So you have a little flexibility there. I would say just like find a company that you really like. Maybe start with a smaller company, because then you'll get a little bit more of a hands-on experience. You'll be doing design and tech work anyway. So maybe that's actually the route you should try to go for, because of these smaller brands, you do pretty much a little bit of everything.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks. And then I think we have just one last question from Azat.
Thanks so much. Yes, may I?
Hi.
Hi. So my question is, I have also, I open my business, I have my brand, I'm working on it, but it's not like enough to stay just on that work and work on my brand. So, but in the same time, I want to work in like huge companies, fashion companies. And every time I apply, two of them, yeah, they send me contract to sign in, and it says like 3 years I can't do, like 3 or 5 years I can't do any like design, like I don't know, I'm doing like hand painting or something, that kind of design outside of web company. So is that, are you faced something like that in your experience? Do you have something like that experience, or may I have to like pay attention on that, or no? I just refuse that jobs, but because I want to also work on my company, I could do my designs beside of working for them. So what do you suggest with that?
So the question you're asking is about balancing between work and your business?
I mean, question is, when they upon hiring you, they want you to not do side design, side work, right? Fashion, like if you are a designer, they don't want to you design for the other, for yourself or somewhere, like they just want to do design for just their companies. And if that point is in a contract list, so like 3 years or 5 years, you can do nothing, like you can like even like, yeah, how it's serious is that? I have to pay attention on that or no?
Got it. So yeah, I think it depends on where you work and the company. Yes, some brands are not okay with having designers who have side jobs, side gigs. They're not okay with you even like freelancing somewhere else on the side to make extra money. Some of them are not okay with you having a brand of your own. And depending on the contract you sign, you might have one of those agreements where there's like a non-compete, basically, where you're not allowed to. It's really a personal decision at that point. You have to decide if taking that job is worth not doing your own thing. To me, it's not worth it, especially at this point in the stage in my life. I want to be an entrepreneur, so I just would choose not to work somewhere that would require that of me. In terms of my job now, it's not a problem. I'm not in like direct competition with Helmut Lang based on what I do. Honestly, I don't even know if they know if I have a brand. So, I mean, honestly, I never brought it up. It seems to not be a problem. I never hid it from anyone. It didn't stop me from getting the job. And I do know that generally speaking, if it's a really big brand, they generally don't have problems with it, just because when you really think about it, super small brands can't compete with major brands with tons of budget and lots of money and marketing efforts. It kind of doesn't make sense for them to limit small brands, even though some do. But yeah, I mean, again, I think it just really depends on the particular company. Even at my last company, Brooks Brothers, a lot of the people I worked with had their own small brands and collections, and it was never a problem. So yeah, I think it's about just kind of searching for the right fit for you, so that you can do your own thing and you can work for them too. So you might just have to do a little bit of searching, but I don't think it's that hard. I mean, most companies are just like thinking about themselves. Not even like, they don't even notice. So yeah.
Okay, thanks so much.
Yeah, absolutely. I think definitely keep doing your thing. I'm all about seeing people choose entrepreneurship. I think it's the right move. So
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
thanks.
Dimitra, this has been wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us. Oh, we have one more Eva, question from Eva. Sorry.
Sure.
Eva. Sorry, I don't know if I'm saying it right. Maybe not.
Nope.
Eva, no. Okay, maybe not. But
Okay.
thank you for joining us. This has been wonderful. I love having FIT alums on, and your path has been so cool, and we'll be watching you, and hopefully students will go on and make some purchases too, which should be.
Thank you. It was so much fun. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks. Have a great day.
You too, and good luck, everybody.
Thank you, Brian.
Bye. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Students, I'm just gonna, I'd love to hear from a few of you on launching your own brand a bit. What did you learn today about being a young designer, and do you want to launch your own brand? Jack, did you have something to say? Are you ready to kick off already?